We're in the office today, and I had several hundred books come in this week. So I was going to talk a little bit about grading books. One of the questions people ask me a lot is, what should I collect? Or, what kind of stuff do you collect? From the library, you can see that I collect a lot of different things. And they say, what should I collect? That was the one big question. And as I said to a friend of mine, collect what you're interested in. If you want to collect for value, you collect what's called key issues. Detective 27, key issue, first appearance of Batman. But if you don't have $1 million or $2 million to spend right away, you may want to start with something smaller. And that doesn't have to be Amazing Fantasy number 15, first appearance of Spider-Man for $15,000, for a decent copy. Start with something brand new that's a first edition, maybe a character that they've done some first appearances with, and of course the first appearances are going to be the valuable ones. And that's what they call a key issue, is one where there's a first appearance. A key issue could be a death of a particular character, or it could be, like I say, the birth of a new character. Collect what you like. In this case, a friend of mine, he was into diving, so I said there's so many different ones that are into diving, whether it be Sea Hunt or Sea Devils or some of the other titles that are out there. Collect what you're interested in and just go from there, because whatever, if it goes up in value, awesome. But at least you're collecting something that you really like. Different types of books are anything from adventure-type comics, cartoon characters that you'd see on TV, classics illustrated, whether it be Tom Sawyer, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne, whatever you like. There's crime comics, and crime comics extend from the 50s to the present. There's funny animal things that are out there, and I'm not talking just the Bugs Bunny, because that's what I call more of a cartoon character. There's horror genre, there's humor, whether it be TV humor or just Archie, which was never really that big of a thing until now, but now it's more of a serious character. There's mystery comics, there's nonfiction things if you want to learn how to do something. There's romance, science fiction, superhero, war, western, nature, religion, role-playing games, movie adaptations. There's things that, if you collect things with just photo covers, there's such a variety of different things that are out there. And, I have a lot of different things here, but I didn't want to get into my collection's bigger than your collection type of thing. I want to make this a little bit more about information than anything else. When you're collecting, do you want the very best copy? I found that kind of interesting. I belong to a thread on Facebook called Old Guys Who Like Comics. It was interesting where somebody showed something that he was looking for a long time, and it wasn't in the greatest of shape. And I don't normally chime in on these type of things, but I had to say, when you first start collecting, you want the very best copy that you can get. You want that in mint condition sort of thing. And then after a while, you go, I would just like to fill in with this particular issue, or I've never seen that before, so I'll get whatever copy I can get and maybe upgrade later. I've bought in comics that weren't in the greatest condition. Maybe I paid book price, maybe a little bit more than what the book price was, but at least I had that copy, and I've never seen another one, which is kind of nice when you get something that's a little bit on the rarer side. In the case of some of the newer things, even, I've bypassed things because I said, I'm going to find a nicer copy online, and either the price has gone up so much that I can't really afford it at this time, or I just haven't seen it again. So sometimes it's good to get whatever copy that's available there. If in turn you do want to sell, maybe we'll spend a little bit moment on selling first of all, because like a friend of mine who goes to a lot of shows and it has a table at the shows and sells, he finds that people will come up and say, my son left me all these comics. How much are they worth? They have no idea what the titles are. They have no idea what the condition is. They want a value of their books. Well, there are price guides that are out there. There's what I term as a seller's guide, and there's also buyer's guide. So here's a couple of books if you're thinking of either buying or selling. Some of them are called a buyer's guide, and the difference between a buyer's guide and, let's say, what I term a seller's guide is that when looking at the prices, and sorry, these are a little bit on the older side, and they're the most recent copies I have. In this case, this one's 1985, but you can probably find updated version, of course, but you're going to see a huge difference in some of the prices when we'll compare them. But there's going to be a difference between a buyer's guide and a seller's guide. What a seller's guide is usually for is for the retailer. It's going to be at a higher price. And Bob Overstreet, who wrote this particular one, not only retails comics, has his comic museum, is a publisher sort of thing. It's a real conflict of interest, but it's a guide that most of the, or basically all the sellers will use. They'll use the most current guide, but even the most current guide is a little bit behind because it's published on a certain date. What I've noticed now is that the new one that will come out will say 2019-2020 will be the latest guide. But this won't take into consideration if something happens, let's say in the movie industry, a comic book that was made into a feature film, all of a sudden will rise in value, sort of thing. So sometimes it's a little bit behind. So you have to keep up by looking online, either on eBay or looking at Amazon to get the various prices, something current. So I went back and I decided to do apples and apples here. This is a 2010 guide. This is a 2010 buyer's guide, sort of thing. And just so you can see the difference between a buyer's guide and a seller's guide. If you're buying on eBay and you're looking at an auction and you want to buy something, you should have an idea as far as what the value of it is and what you should be paying for it. And in case of the 2010 buyer's guide, let's say, for example, the Beverly Hillbillies, the TV comedy series from the 60s, number one in the buyer's guide from 2010 was $60. In the seller's guide, the same condition is $280. Now that's a screaming difference, and in a lot of cases there's usually not that much room. This just happens to be one that I sort of strangely picked out. Again, Bewitched, another 60s series, TV series and comedy, $275 in the seller's guide. Where are we here? Bewitched, $85 in the buyer's guide. Now, if you're buying at a trade show, most of the time they're going to go by the seller's guide, because they're retailers. They have the expenses of not only paying for the table and having everything shipped over in containers or however big their booth is, they have to recoup their costs. And in the case of a store retailer, again, they have to recoup their costs for rent, employees, heat, light, you name it, sort of. But if you're just buying from an individual, there's going to be room to move if that's the case. I have bid against people on eBay before, and I wanted a particular run of books, and they were in really nice shape. And we had the price going. It was 3 times above the seller's guide, and that's where I kind of put a hold on it. Before, you used to be able to do this, but you can't do it anymore. I contacted the eventual winner, and I said, congratulations, that's a really, really nice set of books. Enjoy, kind of idea. Why, I don't know. I just did that. And he wrote me back, and he said that's the only particular publisher, or the particular publisher he collected by publisher. Some people will collect by artist, but he said that's the only publisher I buy, and he says I will pay up to 5 times the amount. I hate to say this, it's kind of embarrassing. I've paid 10 times the amount of what the seller's guide was for a particular book because I really, really wanted it, and because I was buying against other people, and it wasn't a bidding frenzy or anything like that. But it just so happens that that's what it was worth to myself, because pricing is as subjective as grading, which is eventually what we'll get into here. By pricing, it's like, know the price of things. If you're selling something, know what the value is. And as I say, you can either go by the seller's guide, which will have the highest price, or you can go by the buyer's guide, which will have a different price again. In some cases, especially with some of the newer books, the buyer's guide is actually a little bit more expensive than the seller's guide. So it depends upon the book. I just picked some older ones at random that happen to be in there. And again, depends on what the guide. If you're wanting to learn about books, some of the guides are a little bit more extensive as far as the type of information. These type of books, they tend to give you just a basic amount of information. Maybe if there's a particular artist, maybe if there's a particular first appearance, it'll give you that information. The big thing though is, if you're wanting to maximize the value of your sale or of your purchase, know what you're looking for, sort of thing. And there is guides that are out there, or like I say, go online, take a look what's on eBay. Although this all takes time, fortunately you can do this on your phone now, if you're in a hurry. But these are some of the guides that are out there that are available. Also in these guides, a lot of different types of information. One of them is on grading, and it's a 10-point system. And I'm not even sure what 10-point system means. And I say that because they call grading subjective. And subjective has in itself many meanings, and it's almost like open to interpretation by the individual. But as you can see, it starts at a 10.0 gem mint condition, 9.9, 9.8, and all the way down. Most books that you buy off the shelf, you'd hope would be a 9.2, but that's not necessarily going to be the case. And we'll see what grading turns out to on film. We've got some new books here that we can look at that came right from the store and got put in a bag and delivered. But we've got some that came in this week, and we'll just take a look at them. So what happens in the library is we're trying to keep track of when a book was produced, who did it, where they were from, and dates and numbers. So this is The Secret History of D.B. Cooper. You can look up D.B. Cooper, CIA agent who stole a bunch of money and never got caught. So